Hey guys, welcome to episode 7 of completing the WGU Computer Science degree. My name is Ryan and currently I'm going through a course called Computer Architecture this week, and my exam is probably going to be taken today in like a couple hours. So in this video I thought I would sort of show what sort of computer architecture looks like and how my progress has been over these past couple weeks. In my last video, I showed what a typical week looks like at WGU, and I made the calendar. And that calendar was to kind of showcase like the different sort of routines and like repetitions I go through each week. So in this video, I kind of want to showcase like the progress of going through that routine. And the progress has been fairly good over these past several weeks. So I completed Discrete Math II, Scripting and Programming Foundations, Information Security, and I am pretty much about to finish Computer Architecture. And I have to say that that sort of pacing is pretty good. So I guess I could start off with the first course that I took, which was Information Security. The course was really more of a vocab memorization course than anything else. There was very little sort of math or networking involved. It was just sort of categorizing words into like their specific area of expertise, and Information Security was a pretty easy course. I don't think I spent more than 24 hours studying for it, and I passed that course fairly quickly. So that course was about 3 credits, and that was a fairly easy 3 credits, so I'm very happy about that. The next course I took after Information Security was Discrete Math II. Now, when I was going into Discrete Math II, I thought it'd be more data structures and algorithms, because I saw recursion in the course. But as I was going through the course, I noticed that it was more sort of split up between different math categories. Like the first 2 units focused more on like computers and encryption and how to sort of read algorithms. And then the other sort of like remaining units focused on counting, probability, and graph vectors. So taking all of that into account, I thought that Discrete Math II was a fairly interesting course, just because it had that blend of different material. Going through the Discrete Math II, I felt I had to adjust my strategy just a little bit compared to Discrete Math I. In Discrete Math I, I could basically just sort of solve all the problems and kind of memorize the pattern of how to solve problems for the exam, and that was fairly simple. Discrete Math II has problems that are a little bit more trickier, meaning that the problems give you different variables that have to be plugged into formulas in a certain way in order to get the correct answer. Plugging in these variables incorrectly will yield an incorrect answer, and the exam does a very good job at selecting multiple choice answers that are actually incorrect. So there's only one correct answer in the multiple choice exam, and the other 3 answers are sort of what you get when you plug in the variables incorrectly. So I thought Discrete Math II, it was a lot easier to sort of select the incorrect answer, even though it sort of sounds correct and it looks correct. I passed Discrete Math II with exemplary. I only got 3 questions wrong on the entire exam, and I think what really helped in approaching this exam was that I took a lot of notes going through Discrete Math II. When I was taking notes, I didn't necessarily focus more on the vocab. I focused more on areas that I felt I was weak in. So if I did a probability problem and I got the problem incorrect, I wouldn't really just say, oh, don't worry about that, I'll get right on the exam. I looked at every single problem I got incorrect on the side books and told myself that if I got it wrong in the side books, there's a very good chance that if it appears on the exam, I will also get it wrong. So I would write down the question and the answer and all the steps to getting to the answer on a bunch of note sheets. At the end of Discrete Math II, I ended up having about 30 pages of notes, and after reviewing the notes before taking the exam, I found that about my notes covered 80% of the material that appeared on the exam. So I think taking notes, especially going through a math-heavy course like Discrete Math II, is especially important, because it's easy to go through the course material and say, okay, well, I'll remember this, but when it actually does come up, the wording or the variable names or something that's slightly changed in the problems might accidentally sort of input the incorrect answer. So that's Discrete Math II, and the overall amount of time that it took for me to get through Discrete Math II was about, I would say 11 days plus 3 days of taking a break. So it'd be about 2 weeks. I think that that sort of pace is a little bit more faster than other people would go through the course, because the pacing guide specifies that it takes 6 weeks to kind of go through the course, but that weekly calendar that I follow basically uses all of my leisure time and all of my free time to go through the course, and that's why I was able to go through it in 2 weeks. The course after Discrete Math II was Scripting and Programming Foundations, and this course felt more of an algorithmic course than anything else. It's basic high school algebra. There's no really sort of tricks into scripting and programming foundations, so after looking through the course material for about a couple hours, I pretty much took the exam and passed, and that was pretty much that course. I think it was also worth 3 credits, so I'm very happy about that. The current course that I'm going through is Computer Architecture, and this is one of the more advanced courses at WGU, kind of similar to Calculus 1 or Discrete Math II. There's a lot of memorization in computer architecture about how code gets translated from C to assembly to binary machine code. I don't necessarily have to memorize all of the steps into sort of translating code, but the steps in computer architecture basically makes me have to understand how computers work and looking at code and sort of working with code. And there's a lot of different sort of variables involved in computer architecture. I think some of them are memory, caching, parallel processing, microprocessors, assembly code, assembly instructions, different ways to sort of format the code, pipelining, abstraction, and several other techniques. Additionally, computer architecture focused on the actual history of how computers were sort of built in the 1950s and 60s, so there's also that sort of historical element to the course as well. Overall, my review of computer architecture compared to the other WGU courses, I have to say that computer architecture, since it's a fairly new course at WGU, it doesn't necessarily feel as sort of streamlined compared to the other courses. In Discrete Math 1 and 2, I can feel like when I'm going through the zyBooks material that the things that I'm studying will appear on the exam, and that's very true for both the exams that I took. In computer architecture, however, although I haven't taken the exam, looking at the pre-assessment, I felt that the pre-assessment only focuses on certain areas of the zyBooks material, while the zyBooks material might focus very deeply and heavily into some more abstract schematics and concepts that are a little bit far too detailed for WGU. So going into computer architecture, I felt like I had to sort of cherry pick what to memorize and understand, and kind of cherry pick what I don't need to understand. And that's what the course instructors said going into the course, and that's my sort of approach right now. A little bit unusual compared to other WGU courses, but it's expected. I don't necessarily need to understand how compilers work in parallel microprocessing from the 1980s and looking at the schematics on it. I don't necessarily need to understand that. All I need is an overview, a generalized concept of the material, and I think that will sort of help going into the final exam today. So yes, that brings me into where I'm going to be sort of focusing on next for the next couple weeks. So I really want to go into a programming language and start programming immediately, but when I was thinking of what programming language I wanted to go into, I saw Java, I saw C++, and I saw Python, and I think the first programming language that I got interested in was assembly, because assembly is where all the other programming languages get translated into before it gets executed on a processor. So I thought assembly in computer architecture would be a pretty interesting overview and a pretty interesting perspective for all the other future programming courses that I will be taking. And I do have to say that that sort of intuition that I had was correct. Assembly is quite literally the first programming language, and just seeing it translate executions and instructions into ones and zeros is, I think, an interesting concept. So doing sort of C++ and Java and Python in the future, I could sort of see like the assembly code getting translated in the background when I'm working in that material. And so once I'm finished with computer architecture, I think I'll be going into operating systems next. because operating systems is kind of fundamental into how how programs get executed. We're sort of going into an age of parallel processing, and since computer architecture is very sort of close into operating systems in terms of difficulty and system architecture, I thought I'd go into that next. After operating systems, I anticipate that I will begin to program and get a programming terminal installed on my computer and see what I can do there. So that's my progress for these past couple weeks, and that's sort of what I envision for the future over the next couple weeks. And yeah, my routine is very predictable, and things at work and things in my personal life have been fairly steady, so I've been able to make some fairly good progress over these past couple weeks. And that's pretty much this video, and in the next video I will probably be talking about operating systems and sort of going into the course material on that part. So yes, I'll see you guys later, and take care.